Okay, I'd like to officially welcome in CEO Club webinar. I appreciate all the participants joining us. Today's topic is very special. Webinar topic is business innovation and technology in a pandemic. The current situation, I would say, I don't want to use that word, that because it means different ways, because this is a situation, economic situation and a health situation both. As we all know, that the CEOs and business leaders have a crucial role to play in helping the world get through this current crisis. Today, we all hear from our influential leaders on their strategies that drive action on how they're leading through the crisis by incorporating in business innovation and technology. I think webinar is one way of incorporating it. Last month, we CEO Club have launched the CEO Club Crisis Management Initiative for business community to sustain during this current unexpected situation, which we were not ready or had any plans on our table. Business community may need some assistance from a business organization like us, CEO Club, which from a private sector, which we are committed to support and cooperate with our member companies to sustain and come back better way after this economic crisis. CEO Club will assist our member companies into funding, managing technology, human resources, financing client, getting new clients, and any other way to support them to in all industries to sustain and get over this crisis that we are facing at this stage. Today's CEO Club webinar is a part of the series of bringing together influential leaders to share their insight on how CEOs and business leaders play a crucial role and share the strategies that drive action to lead effectiveness through this current situation. In today's webinar, we have a panelist, we have influential panelists, and we are all looking forward to hear from them. First, I'd like to welcome His Excellency Hussain Al Mahmoudi, who is the CEO of Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park. And I appreciate the vision and mission of making Sharjah as an innovation hub. It's a great idea for which you have CEO Club full support. And we wish you all the best in coming days. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Ahmed Al Khalafi, the Managing Director, UAE for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Let me mention that today, I understand, is your first public appearance after joining the Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and we appreciate and we wish you all the best in your new post. I'd like to also welcome, who just joined us, Mr. Usman Sultan, the former founder, CEO of Adu, a major telecom company here in UAE. I always look forward of listening him, which helps me to prepare for my future planning and everything else. So I like to welcome Mr. Usman Sultan to today's webinar. Also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Muhammad Usman Balula, a scientist, who have invented made in UAE COVID-19 robot. And I think that's a good initiative that you have made something made in UAE into this current situation, how to face from the technology part of it, Welcome. Lastly, I'd like to welcome in this webinar Mr. Asif Saber, who is the CEO of My Learning Key and Data Pillar. He's a technology expert and a valuable CEO Club member, and who will be moderating today's session. So at this time, I'd like to again welcome all the panelists, and I hand over the webinar to Mr. Asif to take over, and I will leave and I'll come back at the end. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm based in London, so it's a morning for me, and I'm sure it's the afternoon for you guys who are based in the UAE. So just wanted to say welcome to this exciting webinar that's been hosted by the CEO Club. I've been a member for the CEO Club for the last 2.5 years. This club was definitely created by Dr. Tariq to connect executives and senior members where they can share ideas and experiences through regular activities. It's a platform which has allowed us to connect, as we are today, connecting with senior influential leaders. Today's webinar, like Dr. Tariq said, I just want to echo his words again. We have some really influential leaders and experienced panelists on the webinar. And as Dr. Tariq has given a brief introduction, I'll give a bit more on the panelists so they can also introduce themselves. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Hussein Al-Mahmoudi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. He holds a dual role as well as he also is the Chief Executive Officer of the American University of Sharjah Enterprise. And Mr. Hussein has been the institution was basically established through the royal decree of the Royal Sharjah, who directly appointed Mr. Hussein to these responsibilities in order to create collaboration, long-term relationships between industry, academia, and the public sector. Again, Mr. Hussein has held various roles in different departments. He was responsible for the overall management of the chamber, including the provisions of services to its members. Again, Mr. Hussein, I'd like to welcome you to the panel. Again, I'll let him address his introduction later once I've introduced everybody else. Secondly, I'd like to thank Mr. Usman Sultan to join us, who's the, again, like Dr. Tariq said, the ex-chairman and CEO of DO. And now I think he's sitting on various boards of various startups companies. One of the one I think is Fikra, I believe. Mr. Usman holds like over 35 years of experience. He's especially the one who, especially in the telecom industry, his vast knowledge and expertise in the field of pre-internet days placed him one of the pioneers in France, Europe, and US, Japan, and the entire MENA region. Usman is basically a visionary leader, a public speaker in his field. His distinguished achievements ranked him one of the most powerful executives in the telecom industry in the world twice in both 2010 and 2011. Thank you again, Mr. Usman, for joining the webinar. Thirdly, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ahmed Al-Khalifi, the youngest and the new first Emirati Managing Director for HPE, which is a great honor to have you on board, and I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment at this level. Mr. Al-Khalifi brings a wealth of industry knowledge and experience with, I think, over 14 years of working with UE Technology Services. He joined from Emirates Post Group, where he served as a board member, and also leading large enterprises and nationwide government sales strategies and spearheading a major transformation initiative. Again, he's been appointed, especially during these troubled times, to help HPE combat the COVID pandemic situation. So I'll obviously leave that Mr. Al-Khalifi to elaborate on that a bit more. Thank you again, Mr. Al-Khalifi, for joining this webinar. Lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Muhammad Usman Balula, who's the bioengineer and one of the world's most influential Arab scientists and inventors in the UAE. He's basically the world's, what I was reading on your bio, and I found out that you were the world's 500 most influential Arabs in 2012 and 2013. You know, you're working especially in the diabetes sector, as well as recently you've just come up with a new invention to help with the COVID pandemic, and we would really love to hear more about that as well. Thank you again, Mr. Balula, for joining this webinar. So again, everybody, I think you're on, all the audience is on mute, I think, but you are able to send us questions via the chat. And if you have any questions, please do drop them there, and I'll try to address them to each of the individuals here. As this topic or this webinar is based on innovation and the technology and how it helps businesses, we've seen that during the last 3-4 months, how technology has played a big role in our lives, especially working from home. trying to develop new solutions. Organizations and businesses have come up with some innovative ideas, and that's forced us, in these pandemic days. That's what these people do. They become geniuses. They become proactive in terms of developing new ideas and new solutions, and that's what's allowed us to do. Yes, we might be stuck at home, but we're still able to collaborate with each other, just like we are today. We can obviously still continue doing our work due to the power of technology. Based on that, I've got some questions I'd like to throw out to the panelists. And first of all, I would like to address to Mr. Hussain to say that obviously part of the Sharjah Research and Technology Park. Can you just tell us more about the I'm just going to abbreviate it, SRTI Park, and what are the initiatives and on-ground projects that we have been done to overcome the crisis that we are expecting today?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to wish all of you and your audience Ramadan Kareem, and my best wishes to them and to their families. And I hope they are all safe. And inshallah, together we will pass this challenging times. I'd like also to take this opportunity to congratulate my friend Ahmed for his new role, and I wish him all the best, inshallah. And it's always good also to see my friend Uthman and Muhammad, and wish everyone all the best. It is definitely challenging times, but with challenges there are opportunities. The Sharjah Research and Technology Park objective was part of an overall objective for the UAE government to basically promote innovation and promote knowledge economy. This is something started years ago with having different initiatives in different Emirates to support the transformation of UAE economy, the transformation of UAE society and culture. The case of Sharjah Research and Technology Park is one example of what's happened in the UAE. The objectives of the park is to really accelerate the innovation process, is really to accelerate the social development, so we can really promote innovation and have real innovation in the UAE. The park is a platform to promote emerging technologies. So if we look at the type of technologies we've been promoting at the park and we've been working with, is things like additive manufacturing and 3D printing. And this is a technology that's been there for a while, and in the UAE, we started the process of accelerating this technology, and the park, I think, took a leading role in promoting this type of technology in additive manufacturing. Today, at the Sharjah Research and Technology Park, we print three types of 3D, basically additive manufacturing. We print plastic, we print metal, and we print houses. I don't think there's any place, probably in the region, they can do this at the same time. One of the products that we developed for COVID-19 was the face shield mask, which we used in collaboration with our partner Amensa to print face shields. And I think we printed more than 400,000 face shields, which basically was used by security professionals and healthcare professionals. Another technology that the park is also promoting is agriculture technology. And we knew and we predicted, and this is something has been there for a while, that food security is something critical. So we set up an R&D center to develop new type of technologies related to hydroponics and aquaponics. And now we keep improving this technology. And now we included artificial intelligence even in the development of these type of technologies. Last but not least, we also used 3D printing material to support our industries and factories. Today, due to all this restriction of traveling, a lot of factories, they cannot import key components of their manufacturing. And by using 3D technologies, we can develop these pieces for oil and gas or automotive or even different factories. So these are type of technologies that we've been working on. We have few different companies that do different things in healthcare and other things. I can share with you later. But just to answer you, these are the 3 examples of the type of things we are doing at the park at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. In terms of the park itself, right, obviously you've developed, or industries have developed such innovative solutions there. How do you see other organizations or other foreign investors coming into the park and helping to develop or help to implement solutions in the park itself?
I think this is the idea of commercialization of technologies and applied science. I think it's an untapped area in our part of the world. I think there are a lot of opportunities to be developed. I think more and more government, I think post-COVID-19, realized that we need to have our own industries, especially in critical industries like, for example, the healthcare. We saw the Prime Minister of UAE, Sheikh Mohammed, announced last week that UAE should focus on healthcare and related strategic areas for the country. So I think this is an area that's going to grow. Having said this, it's a very challenging area. It requires a lot of collaboration and commitment from private sector, from government sector, from the ecosystem in general, from society as well. I can talk more about this, but really what comes to my mind is the Korean example. 30 years ago, they had nothing. And we were laughing on Hyundai and Samsung product. Today, they are the best. It's a process. Everybody has to join this process and commit to this process and walk the talk. It's not only by talking. You have to get your hand dirty. You have to walk the talk and really invest and work. So I think this will bring a lot of opportunities, in my opinion. We will see new industries emerging, and we already see it happening already.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Really informative, and I'll come back to you with another question in a short while. I want to address my next question to Mr. Osman, coming from the telecom industry. Obviously, obviously you've been in a leader and influential for the last 35 years. You've got lots of vast experience. I want to just ask your opinion in terms of how do businesses adjust in this environment now. Obviously, from post-COVID, people's behaviors are going to change. People's attitudes are going to change between how they do business with each other. So how do you see businesses adjusting, creating new business models, and what could be sustainable to allow business to survive going forward?
Thank you, Mr. Asif. And I have to return to my dear friend Hussein. The pleasure I have to see him and my colleague Ahmed. We were working together for years, so it's a real pleasure. And thank Mr. Tariq for organizing this. And I feel privileged with being with Dr. Osman, Dr. Malula. So let me start by wishing the audience a very blessed month of Ramadan, hoping that, first of all, they are all safe. I think we are in quite unique condition. To answer your question, there is a concept which is the cursor between fear and greed. It's in sociology, groups, human beings react always in this. And in law, in financial, on the stock market, it's reactions, fear or greed. Companies are going through 3 phases. You all start by fear. I sit on the board of several companies, and we systematically ask them to present us a survival scenario. And when in survival, you are quite innovative. Innovation happens either by necessity or by exploration, where you create the environment, the ecosystem, or sometimes by serendipity, an accidental outcome that nobody was expecting from something, and actually that is used for something else. I dare to say that even social networking actually developed like that. Initially, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg wanted or had imagined that this is why it was done. It was done for a much smaller purpose but then people took this, owned it, and it corresponded to a real necessity. So companies are going through fear, then learning, and I think now that fear is past, that we are seeing governments and corporations adapting, they're all in the learning before they start thinking of the growth phase, back to how can I grow. And I was astonished to see a lot of companies that not only, well, let's look at how technology, I mean, this webinar is about technology and innovation in a time of pandemic. So how companies used innovation for survival, how governments, I mean, 2 startups I'm working with, one of them transformed totally the technology. It's an artificial intelligence application that is meant for the use case of recruitment. You know, they transformed this video application to allow it to be used for pre-screening for candidates in terms of emergency, because governments will have to build, you know, teams for emergency, or for pre-screening of COVID-19. So they immediately adjusted to this. Another one showed innovation in the business model, because in this survival, so the takeaway from what I'm saying is that fear is always a great incentive for innovation by necessity. And this is what we saw. Now, coming to the fact, I believe that innovation will still be needed in the learning phase. I am sure that all my colleagues here, I am sure that all of us and all the people listening to us and watching us are thinking how my business will look like post COVID-19. The good thing is that we discovered that, you know what, I can do things differently. I can do this. When I used to say this in conferences about digital transformation and about some efficiency, you know, but when you hear it, it's something, when you are forced to have people staying home, then you are, you know, you jumped the step, and you're just discovering that things can be done differently. So I am sure that everybody is now looking how I will reformat my business. And here a lot we will see, in my opinion, we will see a lot of innovation happening. We will see in organization structures. And let me give you an example. We have been seeing, you remember the move from centralized information, then decentralized information, but then people had resistance, thinking that my information, the information of my company, will be somewhere in the cloud, and I don't know where this will be. You know, the cloud phenomena. Now, CEOs and leadership are discovering, but this accountant, don't need it to be in the office. Actually, this accountant can be anywhere in the world. So the articulation between talent and resources will be totally reinvented and thought in a different way. And I think this is quite exciting. Now, I need to put immediately a disclaimer, because, and that debate existed. You remember the debate about AI, artificial intelligence, saying, but if an intelligent robot can do this, why do I need this person? And everybody in the world started this debate saying, yes, but what about the job? People listening to us, everybody is thinking, well, will my job be at threat? Now, with the new way that we discovered of doing things, I think we need to have the right conversation. It doesn't mean that I can do things remotely, that companies will start by saying, you know what, I can get rid of half of my workforce and reorganize my business model differently. I think we need to have, there are societal and human dimensions that need to be added to the conversation, the usual conversation that happened between what technology makes possible, what technology allows us to do, what economy makes viable. You know, the economical equation makes viable, but now we need to bring a new player in this conversation, what human and societal is saying is desirable and is helping the well-being of individuals and societies. That is as well, in my opinion, how the conversation have to be shifted moving forward and post the pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Saman, for that really insightful in terms of where we are going to be creating different business models and everything. Yes, it is going to be challenging times, and I agree that during these challenging times, people come up with innovative ideas, and there's going to be some huge opportunities how we adopt these going forward. And like you said, obviously, we need support from businesses, we need support from other technology companies as well. And that brings me nicely to Mr. Ahmed Al-Khalifi, you know, the newly appointed managing director of my HPE. Obviously, I was reading again recently that you were specifically brought in to tackle, you know, the customers and partners to manage the COVID-19. So based on that, please give a brief introduction of yourself. And then the question that I want to throw out to you is, what's HP's contribution been so far, and what is planned to be in fighting against the COVID pandemic?
Sure. Thank you, Asif, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel. And it gives me an honor to be part of this panel with Mr. Osman Sultan, a true role model for all of us who have been working with him in early days launching Do. Also, it gives me an honor to be also with Mr. Hussein and Mr. Muhammad. And I wish everyone a happy Ramadan and Ramadan Mubarak to all of our listeners and who have joined us today. In Hewlett Packard Enterprise, the company lives a mission to enhance the way people live and work. And that is something that we have been living even prior to the pandemic. As the events folded, HP lived to its promise and mission by supporting its customers, by supporting its partners and governments and communities. To give examples on that, HP was the first technology company to provide relief packages to the companies and partners. Up to $2 billion has been basically allocated to ease the financial constraints that we have foreseen occurring because of COVID-19. Also, we have introduced deferral programs where basically our customers can acquire technology by deferring the payments to 2021 by paying 1% every month. And that in such time is a very important thing for them to preserve their cash and capital, to ensure that their companies survive this event, and to preserve jobs and lives by the end of it. Also, on a global stage, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, it being the leading high-performance computing provider subsequently to the acquisition of Cray last year. We have participated at the committees that has been set up by the White House as the High-Performance Computing Committee that will help and aid the research of vaccines and possible cures to the pandemic. Similarly, we have done the same in France and Germany. Also, to enable our customers to navigate the new reality of the world where everyone is working remotely, we have supported them through our virtual desktop infrastructure provisioning and fast deployment on that. And most importantly, we also, looking at the communities around us, we have pledged to basically match every donation that our employees have been raising towards the communities, hospitals, and schools to support the wider communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halafi. Really appreciate, obviously, HPE doing their part in this troubled times. And I'm sure, like the tech companies, you're bringing out new innovation tools and solutions to help combat this situation. And that really brings me nicely to Muhammad Usman Balula, who's one of the influential scientists and inventors. He was one of the inventors of the a monitoring and control system for diabetes systems. He set about creating an artificial pancreas. And I think with that idea, this situation what we are in, he came up with another new innovative idea, which I'd like him to provide some insight to, where it's a COVID robot which detects, I think, whether you have been treated or whether you've been impacted or not. So again, Mr. Muhammad Usman Balula, I'd like you to introduce yourself and please provide us a bit of insight in terms of the innovations and solutions that you are coming across.
Thank you very much for having me here, and it's a pleasure actually to be with all of you. And I would like to say hi for everyone, starting with Mr. Hussein. Really happy to be with you, and Mr. Usman Sultan, and congratulations even to Ahmed for the new appointment. And it's really a pleasure to be with you today. And as you asked me about the COVID-19 robot, actually, it's the ideas come with the quick spreading of the virus, when we see that everyone really work closer with someone who's infected with the virus. So we see the number that is increasing in this case of the pandemic. So I think to find something or a solution that it will slow it down by reducing the number of people that work with to keep a social distancing. So I come up with a COVID-19 robot. So it's here. So just I will show you. So if you can see here, this is a COVID-19 robot. Beside the COVID-19 robot, and here this is the control unit. COVID-19 robot, basically, it will start detecting the main symptoms of corona, which is starting with thermal, it will starting with a thermal camera that it will detect the temperature from the distance, and using even like sensor that it will detect if there is a cough, and breathing difficulty by detecting the SpO2 by using the SpO2 sensor. The idea has come up, but the problem here, we found it that during the pandemic, even to develop the idea, actually it will be really headache. Because, for example, some sensors I'm ordering from US, when I opened the website to order that sensor, I found that they wrote in their website, the company, it will shut down, okay, in New York in the 11 in the morning. So all the business actually shut down. Even for delivery, there is a huge problem that to receive the component. And in the local market, even we found this problem. And for example, when I get all the component from the local market, which is actually become really difficult, you need to sanitizers, you need to use alcohol to be sure that you will not get the virus. So the idea is come up to find a solution. That solution, it will help all those they work on the front line in the airport, or they work on the hospitals, to get rid of this virus. So we try to make it automated. So by the robot, it will take care about everything. So it will detect the temperature within the distance. It will detect the main symptoms. Also, it will show it to the operator. So the operator, they can see it clearly. They have a 360 camera. So it will show that even if there is anybody closer to the patients, we have automatic sanitizer, so it will work after each use. So we'll be sure that it will not spread the virus. So the main idea is about how to find solution within short time. And here, when we talk about the innovation, it's not this regular innovation that it will take long time. Okay, for the patent or IP, it will take 2 years. No, here we need to find the solutions with our resource. Even we cannot wait to find solution that it will come from outside, because as I told you, some components, when we want to order it, that we found that there is a limitations for the courier, that even when I order it, I'm not sure that I will receive the component at the right time, because you see all the airport is closed. And even all the country, they try to limit all their resources, especially in the medical field, to keep it for their own. It will even raise the question similar to the vaccines. Now all the companies, they are working hard to have a vaccine, to have a medication for the coronavirus. But we will get this vaccines once it will release? I don't think that. Why? Because the country, they will have like opportunity. First of all these resources, they will use it for their own. If they have something extra, yes, they will send it to friends, and then, okay, they will send it to the poor country. So that it will, that actually, I would like actually to highlight about the initiative from Sheikh Mohammed, that he start think from now post COVID-19. So all the country, they need to change their whole strategy to be not similar to before. So because if we use to deal with the same scenario in the business and the healthcare sector, we will not survive. This pandemic, we didn't get something like it before. So we should get the best practice and lesson from this. We should prepare ourselves for the next pandemic, especially in the healthcare system. We should have more innovation related to the healthcare system. And as Mr. Hussein, he said, yes, Korea is a good example. They start within a short time, and we have a good collaboration with the Korean, especially for the startup and SMEs. We look in their model, they have like innovation center in each cities, and they try to focus in different areas. Once they found a good startup in this area, right away they have a model. That model, it will fund them, okay, and it will help them to reach to the market within shortened times. So we need to have a similar thing for startups. We don't want actually to focus everything for big enterprise and big companies. We need to give opportunity for the startup. But the problem, the opportunity that, especially with the healthcare system, it's required a lot of validations and licensing, that it will not be easy if we compare it to the rest of the business.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. I mean, I'm really impressed in terms of obviously the technology and the robot that you designed, but it seems that obviously you've come across some challenges as well, right, in terms of the components and then getting out this into the market, and you see there's an opportunity there. I think like you just addressed Mr. Hussein there in terms of industries, and Mr. Hussein, I just want to ask you a quick question then. How can this crisis accelerate technology transformation in the industry sector? And you as a park, what will be your role in this transformation going forward?
I think this crisis will create new industries and new models, as Mr. Uthman mentioned. There will be a new approach of conducting business, in my opinion. I believe there will be new industries emerging. I think the agriculture industry, we already saw a couple of weeks ago Abu Dhabi investing $100 million in new type of farming. I think these type of industries will thrive. I think transport and logistics will thrive. I think fintech, the banking industry, will change drastically, I think, post-COVID. What we need is, as I said, this is a process that we started a long time ago. The UAE today is UAE, and we are enjoying the safety and the security and the lifestyle despite COVID, is because the government put in place a lot of infrastructure to be able to allow us to do what we are doing now, being able to execute our businesses from distance through e-government, or being able to do these type of calls because of our telecom infrastructure. But I think the expectation is high. I think new industries will emerge, a new model will emerge. I think education will change. as well. So entities like us, I think, has a good opportunity to engage different players and enforce this triple helix. So we are, for example, trying to encourage people now, entrepreneurs, to develop their own smart industries. And these industries will be also focusing on a new type of manufacturing. I mean, we saw in the US, how the US administration asking car companies to create ventilators. This would require a new type of models that will allow you to be flexible and allow you to be reactive and seize the opportunities, basically. And I think, viruses like these are here to stay. And I think we've seen them happening over the past 20 years, starting with different type of flus, but this is different, and I think will be part of the new normal, unfortunately. So that's my insight in this.
No, I totally agree in terms of people's, like I said earlier, behaviors and attitudes are going to change, and then people becoming innovative. Like you just said, car manufacturers, being asked to build ventilators. Here in the UK, we've seen packaging companies asking to build PPE equipment. Again, I'm come back to Mr. Osman in terms of innovation. How could you see use of technology to mitigate such challenges itself?
I want to be back on what we said. If you look at the factor that is the key factor of a lot of industries, you will see that it is managing a flow. In telecom, we manage traffic. In airline, in transport, the banking, you manage a financial flow, you manage whether it's traffic, and the world lives around flows. And actually, cities and civilization were born and developed because they were at the center of flows, and we saw city becoming a point of attraction, whether for merchants, whether for some time, and more recently talent, and they attracted flows. Pandemics, and I'm speaking under the control of Dr. Muhammad, are flows. The viruses exist. The difference today is that the flow of propagation was different. So we have seen, in governments, in companies, how you allocate sometime budgets and spend between economic impact and sometime doing good and doing the right thing, etc. So to illustrate, in a lot of Western countries, there have been debates recently that why healthcare budgets were cut, because the government had to tackle other things with some more interesting economic impact. Now, that crisis actually highlighted that is going to change, be it on company level, because the difference is when you don't feed a person that is hungry, if something happens to this person, the economic system is continuing. When you're not treating or you're not preventing this person of being sick, he is contaminating all the rest, and the world stopped. I just want us to come back to that idea that the world, just with all the economic construction, with all these flows, the world, in matter of weeks, few weeks, stopped, came to a stall. So I think that is of importance, that there will be not only for each company a way to reinvent the operating model, the doing business, but there will be a discussion about and conversation about what we should do. We are all seeing and receiving these videos on WhatsApp. And I'm trying to summarize because there are a lot of themes, but mainly it is saying Is COVID going to be enough so the world can have a wake-up call? Or are we going back, like, I mean, Bill Gates in 2015, and I'm sure you all saw that in the WhatsApp things that we received, in a TED Talk said, we have been doing scenarios for being ready for a nuclear catastrophe or a nuclear war. We have not made any scenario. And this is what we saw, is that most of the these countries that we believed having a very strong actually were taken by surprise, because nobody invented this scenario where you immediately were declared that we entered, to use this thing like we see in the movies, DEFCON 2 or DEFCON 3 or DEFCON, which in the military words, you know, you're always raising the, I think we will start to have these scenarios. And I see, and you're asking how technology, and I apologize if I'm a little bit taking too much time. I see a setup where we will be ready. So a certain government will say, tonight we are entering situation alert 1. It means schools will be, children will start studying for distance for a couple of weeks. It means that the circulation will be, it means that we go to social distancing. It means that restaurants will have, like we are doing, will have to enter a phase where only 50% of capacity. If they see that they are not managing the curve, they will press a week after another button. We enter state of alert 2, for instance. Where, so we will live with having these things like integrated, like for pollution. If level of pollution exceed the threshold, I know, for instance, in a country like France, where I used to live, they will tell you immediately on the spot, you know, on the news, today only cars with an even number plate or an odd number plate, or you cannot exceed 60 kilometers on the highways, etc., etc. You enter. If this doesn't regulate better, you move to the next level of alert or the next threshold. So I think from that point of view, I mean, we will live with these viruses. They will exist, they will propagate, they ever did that. But we will need to control the flow, the propagation, with certain levels that will be taken. So companies will have to use, and governments, nations, will have to use technology. We will need to develop platforms for learning distance and having methodology. I have the privilege of being asked to be the chairman of such one of these platforms, and I can tell you, we see that there will be a new way of doing things. We are in contact with universities, we are in contact with colleges, schools, because that will be an integrated part of every university, or how to be ready and how to push the button. And distance learning, distance working, companies will have to use new ways of technology, and we are seeing this platform. How easy is it that we are having, instead of being all of us panelists and being and book a hotel room and doing, we are doing this. And I can tell you something, probably the user experience that we are having as speakers and for our audience will be developing and getting better and better in a very fast way, because these companies now are seeing an opportunity like never before. So technology will serve this. Does this mean that we will run after technology again and forget the consequence on people, on their jobs, on their source of income, and in societies? You will certainly see sectors that will be impacted, that will have to reinvent. Hotels will have to think probably that I will not have the same rate of occupation for my, because now people discovered that they can do all these meetings and all these seminars. And so why bring, airline companies will have to think differently, because they will not have the same rate of usage, but at the same time, they will have to adjust for distancing, maybe. I don't know, I'm giving just examples. So a whole recalibration, I dare to say reset of the way we do business, we work, we study, we go to the bank, we go to the supermarket, and we do our daily things will have to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Yes, definitely agree. It's a shock to the system in all sectors, right? Industry, home, whichever you think. Talk about restaurants, bars, cinemas. You know, they've been impacted. They'll have to come up with new models and provide some innovation solutions. Again, we've seen recently, I think, around the world, online streaming activity has increased drastically, right? Telecom industries had to provide what you call more freedom in terms of connectivity and broadband connections type of thing, so people could work from home, people could do certain things that they weren't allowed to do before. I've seen the gap between, or the cap between the data that was allowed has been increased for everybody. Hence, they can use their mobile phones, use their technologies, use webinars like this that we are doing today. Definitely, the whole thinking and the model in terms of how to do business forward and how to interact with each other is definitely going to change. And coming to that, Mr. Ahmed, just want to quickly ask you, in terms of in light, obviously, what's happening the last 3-4 months or during this crisis, what learnings should we draw from from this, and what does the future hold for us, and how HPE can play a role?
Thank you, Asif. As Mr. Osman and Mr. Mahmoud mentioned, this is going to change the way that we live forever, perhaps for a very long time. How we interact with each other, how we go to work, how our kids will go to school. And Mr. Osman has clearly and gave it the best description on that. But that, in order for you to be dynamic, it requires a good level of infrastructure, underlying infrastructure to enable you to deliver that. In order for you to shut down schools and open schools and transfer them to online and offline, it requires quite an investment in infrastructure. And we are lucky here in United Arab Emirates, where the government over the decades have spent in building capacities through telecom operators, and Mr. Osman here is a better judge on that. Also, with respect to smart governments at a federal level, at a local level, have been undergoing a lot of investments. As we have noticed, as soon as this crisis happened, all services of UAE government never got interrupted. Everything just ran as smooth as possible. So this shows you how can a country be prepared, how can an economy be prepared to that as a learning to basically build on. Over the last few years, our focus has been on the application layer, on artificial intelligence, on things that run on that layer, which is the most important, don't get me wrong. But this crisis showed us that if you don't have an underlying infrastructure that can support your basic needs, the bandwidths that you were talking about, basically you cannot achieve what you want to achieve by the end of it. The way, as also Mr. Osman described, that basically the economy is all about flows, and in technology, flows is about data flows. If we look at supply chains today worldwide, everyone is looking at revising his supply chains because of the interruptions that happened into the supply chains and how we do business. When we look at the technology perspective, the big discussion, even prior to COVID situation, was about where would the data be? Who will own the data? Should the data be on-premise, or should the data be on the cloud? If the data is on the cloud, what are the risks? And those discussions have always continued. And I think post this crisis, we will see more investments towards private clouds in governments, companies, countries. We will see more focus on agile infrastructure. We will see more focus on consumption-based IT models, which we are proudly in Hewlett Packard Enterprise being a pioneer in that in our product offering in Green Lake. So it's all about agility. It's all about being dynamic. It's all about being ready for basically that unexpected rise in consumption. So yeah, that's my conclusion, humble conclusion on this situation.
Thank you, sir. Again, obviously, from a HPE global view, that's a vision and all that. But one question I have personally to yourself is, as a new Emirati leader of HPE, what is your vision in terms of about HPE UAE? What would you want to achieve in the UAE?
Hewlett Packard Enterprise is a great company even prior to the joining of Ahmed Al-Khallafi. I forgot to mention that Hewlett Packard is the proud provider or technology provider to a lot of educational initiatives that you have seen online, government services that have gone online, and many others in telcos and all those things. So Ahmed Al-Khallafi will come and build on those successes of Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Hewlett Packard Enterprise has an extensive level of expertise worldwide, where it's a mission on me to get the best of thought and knowledge and practices that have been done worldwide and elevate them further to suit UAE. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has always pushed us to be number one, and we will make sure that basically Hewlett Packard Enterprise supports that vision in delivering the best technologies that will enable United Arab Emirates to always be at the forefront.
Thank you, perfect. Really looking forward to seeing that vision come through. Coming back to Mohammed Sumad Balula, I just want to explore a bit more about the robot that's been built. And one of the questions been asked by one of the audience members as well was, does the robot, is it based only on thermal sensors for the patient, or does it have any other parameters or applications for other symptoms of COVID? I mean, we keep hearing about new strains coming out. So how quickly can this be adopted, or how quickly can this be configured in a way to see what's going on in any other strains that are going to be coming into the in the area?
Okay, no, it's not the thermal. This is the main. So now if you see all around the world, mainly they focus on the thermal. So if you see in the airports, if you see now in the malls and everywhere, the first thing they try to detect if you have any kind of fever. So this is the first thing, okay, or the first symptoms that the robot, it will work to detect. And I'm using here the thermal camera that it will detect from the distance. So even the patient, they don't need to be closer to the robot. Second symptoms, even the cough, if there is any cough, okay, that's the robot itself, it will detect it. And if there is any breathing difficulty, which is like the percentage of the oxygen on the blood decrease, we have here the sensor that it will detect that. So the combinations of all these detections, it will give the percentage of you having coronavirus. So if this is increased, here we move from the automated, we move to someone that it will talk with the patients. So later on, we have the 360 camera. 360 camera, it will give operator opportunity to talk from anywhere around the world, because we use it based on the internet. So they can communicate with the patients to ask them a few questions to be sure that they have any symptom that we cannot detect it by sensors. Even you see now within the last few weeks, every week we hear there is a new symptoms for coronavirus. So the problem that within the pandemic, we don't have enough data. We don't have the right system to detect. So we need to build everything fast. And this is why I built it just within 2 weeks. And the delay it was for the components. So I try to find, first of all, what is available in the local market. Many think it wasn't available because of because of the situation that many companies, even they don't want to order something, and then it will get stuck either here or in the origin where they built it. So this is why you need to find another alternative. And mostly in the innovations, once we work, we try actually to have like alternatives. For example, if the plan B is not work, if plan A is not work, you must have plan B and plan C. And I think Mr. Usman, he want to ask something. Is that okay? So this is the basic, and every day I try to add something whenever we found from the physicians or from new research, we found a new way, we try to add it. So this is the way that we work on the pandemic. The innovation in the pandemic, it will not be the innovation in the regular time. In the regular time, we have a time and we have a lot of options, and we have a fund. Once we reach to the pandemic, we found all this is not available. There is no fund. Even if we want to work, okay, with to go with legal to be to patent it or to have an IP, that process actually is designed to be like for 2 years. So if you want to save your community, you cannot wait till you go through all this process. And even now, if we hear about the vaccines, okay, it will take 1 year to 18 months. So who will wait all this time? So everyone now, they are in hurry to get all these solutions, because in this scenario with the limitations of resource, you cannot do the thing as you plan it or as you do it on the normal situation.
Thank you, Mr. Bulla. Yes, I understand in terms of you capturing data and obviously sensors type of thing. Again, that brings me to things like IoT devices and obviously capturing data and putting that into a cloud, for example, and analyzing that data. And based on that, we need a full ecosystem. Again, I'm going to come back to Mr. Usman Sultan in terms of we hear these buzzwords, right? Like the IoT, the big data, smart cities, even 5G. I mean, I don't want to stress too much on 5G, what's been happening in London, where they've been burning down, posts and stuff. But how appropriate do you think these technologies are, and what do you think how they play their role going forward? Sorry, Mr. Smart, I cannot hear you. You might be on mute.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, apology. I was saying it's a good thing to pause a little bit and think about some of these words. I mean, let's face it. We have been people who are not in the technology space. They have been overwhelmed by all these buzzwords. IoT, 5G, blockchain, cloud, AI, big data. I mean, right or wrong, in the common and social dinners, you see all this and people are mixing. While actually, if you take a model like the smart city model, it line up all these in a very structured way. Now back to these, yes, sensors, and that's the intervention, because I wanted on when Dr. Muhammad spoke about the sensors and the data in a bigger picture. There will be, we are told, trillions. This is called the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, where theoretically everything that is around you will be able to capture data and send this data. So, and now the world is totally interconnected. We've been talking that the flow of COVID was because, I mean, we talk about the Spanish flu, but at that time, people were not traveling and going and taking an airplane. One of our panelists, one of our audience members, Dr. Abed, I was reading is saying if we have stopped airline in December 2019, Dr. Abed Baidas, that's him, I'm quoting him, we wouldn't, yes, we would have, it would have cost billions on the airline industry, but not the tens of trillions that probably, and we could have done something maybe for the airline industry, but that would have been a different story probably on the propagation of COVID. So it's always, where do you put the cursor? And honestly, I don't think that the world has been good in putting the cursor well. Collaboration, a lot of remarks of our audience is saying, don't we need more collaboration? Of course. By construction, this COVID story is a matter of, because it's becoming global. So if you don't collaborate with other and government and countries, you can't just, and people close their borders. They closed. Even when you close the border, there was a need as well to continue to collaborate. Will this happen more and more? Or will we be holding to some data? And that brings the story of data, the sensors that Dr. Muhammad put on his robot, but all the other sensors. There is, because we see it, and there will be a big debate between having this data there, and let's face it, in a smart city, for instance, if you have had every government entity having its own data and not this shared and not this on one platform where you can make this data smart, you can transform data to become information, you can drive from this information knowledge, you would have been in trouble even in fighting the propagation of COVID, because you wouldn't be able to know that this person has been moving there, being in contact, and that data and big data and technology is allowing this. On the other hand, people will say, yes, but what about privacy? So that conversation is yet to happen completely. Security, and we have all read articles saying some countries will argue this and will use that as a pretext in order to just, in terms of data and to monitor everything. We have seen Mr. Zuckerberg going in front of a Senate commission in the US, and the CEO of Google saying, what kind of data? Why are you keeping this data? Let's face it, the amount of data that some companies are having on us and on what is astonishing and frightening. So there will be a need for a platform for the right conversation, what we do with the development, because I can see that these sensors will become more and more. 5G is one trigger of that. Now, the question that you said, I will not go there, I personally, but that's only my personal opinion as a person who worked for years, I don't think that 5G has anything to do with the, with the COVID or on that health. But we have seen this debate when 2G came, when the mobile industry started. I've been on TV back in 97, 98, and then when there was 3G, and then when there was 4G, and this will happen with 5G. But I'm not anymore wearing the hat of one industry captain. So I think for a formal and appropriate for our audience, they shouldn't take my word. There is a regulatory authority in the country that has the mandate of giving any formal position on things related or concern related to telecommunication technology and concerns. So they should be. I think as a courtesy, I cannot. I said my personal opinion, but that's my disclaimer. It's important. But 5G will enable, because one of the characteristics of 5G is not only the speed of download and the capacity of the pipe, is how many devices you can connect. That's a huge difference with 4G. So IoT will be, along all this construction, everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart, there is a need for conversation. There is a need for conversations where different stakeholders will need to sit, make sure that we are asking the right questions before we just look for the right answers, and then figuring out what should be done, keeping, ahead of our minds, keeping in mind the well-being of human beings, individuals, and our societies. Will we learn from what's happening? I don't know. I'm a hopeful person. I'm an optimistic person. I'm hoping that that is such a shock of the system that we will learn, and that we will put the cursor between fear and greed, a little bit less from the greed, take it a little bit to be more concerned. I will not call it fear, I will not call it greed, but I will call it the concern on, doing good for human beings, and the desire of always having more, having more, having more. So there is a conversation to happen. It will take hours. I just wanted to touch on that. Far from me the pretension of saying I have an answer for that.
Thank you, Mr. Osman. Really, again, insightful. Always welcome your words of wisdom and leadership. Look, in cautious of time, I've got some questions that I want to throw out to the panelists. Please feel free to address from the audience. One of the questions I have is that for anybody who wants to answer this is, what percentage of budget do you spend on research and development phases of the innovation process?
Mr. Ahmed, he is a large corporation. He should, they are really pioneers in that.
So, Mr. Ahmed, what do you say? What percentage of budget do you spend on research and development phases of the innovation process?
Ahmed.
Sorry, you're probably on mute, Mr. Ahmed.
Ahmed, the question is for you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, sorry. With respect to the exact number of percentage of budget that we spend on research and development, I don't have it present with me right now, unfortunately, but it's quite significant. Research and development is something that is of our core. We ensure our survival is to basically make sure that our products are always relevant into a technology landscape, which, as you guys know, it's a fast speed environment. So yeah, quite a significant portion that goes into that.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the audience is how technology innovation will reach people who do not have access to them. For example, refugees, people with special needs type of thing. So I think, Mr. Osman, you probably be somebody who could address that.
Yes, I think first of all, I thank the person who asked this question, because it's true. If we are going to a world where people are going to be connected differently and use technology differently, that's a subject dear to my heart. I like to think that I was the first one day in the International Telecommunication Union. I was in the 2001. I was sharing the group for the Arab world on that. That's for the private sector. And I used being connected as a basic human need. At the time, representative of some countries and some government officials said that is too far-fetched. In some of our countries, we're challenged on other basic human need, like, good nutrition, good healthcare, good education. So we don't want to do. And in less than a decade, actually, it is not a basic human need anymore. It's a basic human right. It is becoming a basic human right. And the Secretary General of ITU used that sentence. I was in a conference. I said that. I said, I'm switching basic human need to basic human right. And he came and saw me and he said, you're absolutely right. This is something that, and since that concept is really becoming. So I fully agree with the person of our audience that put that. I don't have a solution, but I think this should be a target. This should be a target. International organizations, companies, governments should target to make sure that these new technology and access to this new technology doesn't leave anyone behind. Otherwise, this divide, we always heard about divides, So this digital divide will become bigger than ever before, and that will not be sustainable. And I know that large companies, I know that because I had a long discussion with the CEO of HP Enterprise in Barcelona, Akhuy Ahmed, one day.
No.
And they insisted that, and if you look, companies like Microsoft, Google, all these people have that on their agenda, which is a good thing. But other stakeholders need to be in that loop and in this conversation.
Very true.
Sure, very true. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mohan. I think one more question for Mr. Hussain. Just a question in terms of what is expected in the new business models in terms of for communities, education, businesses, and youth. What's your thought on that?
Sorry, what is the question? Is
what is expected for new businesses for post-COVID in terms of for communities, education, businesses, and youth? What's your view on that? How do you think people are going to change?
Business models for many things, but I think again agility, as Ahmed suggested, and you know, I think every industry it will have to be it will have to have its own model that basically cater for the current situation. There is no one size fits all I think in this. So I think the underlying lines would be things like collaboration, agility, speed, scaling, and communication. I think these are the things that you would have to embed in, and of course making money as well. So you will have to embed in your business.
Thank you very much. Thank you for insight. Listen, I think due to the time restrictions we have, I want to thank everybody on the call, especially the panelists and the audience. They've been sending us a lot of questions. I will only address a few of them because we had so much insight coming from the panelists themselves. I want to finally thank you very much again for providing that insight and your thoughts and how we can go forward. I think we all have to obviously think as a like you said, collaboratively, provide solutions, look for future innovations and solutions that can help to develop the country and individuals themselves, and we have to keep safe. I want to pass back to Dr. Tariq, who will probably give us a brief summary of the webinar. So Dr. Tariq, back over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I just have a one question for Mr. Hussain Mahmoodi. You know, see, you are in Innovation and Technology Park, you know, and what has happened in the last 2 months. Are you do think that, you know, that people should incorporate innovation and technology and being in your park? How can they take a maximum benefit from you being in your park?
I think I think for companies and organizations to evolve, they have to embed innovation as part of their business. How can they benefit from us? We are lucky that we are adjacent to a university city, which has more than 45,000 students, 22 universities, all in one place. There are a lot of investment being invested in labs, into infrastructure in these universities. We have global faculties around. These are all at the disposal of industries, of entrepreneurs. So I think we start from there. How can we activate the access to these universities and talent? Through a structural approach that makes a win-win for everyone. That's number one. Number two, we have invested more than $5 million in establishing what we call the Fab Lab, so regional size fabrication lab with advanced industries in additive manufacturing and prototyping and electronics, on many other electronics, and these will be available to industries to come and innovate. And third and last, and it's not the last thing, but we have also collaboration with international organizations, R&D institutions, and multinational companies as well. So it's a collaboration. It is stakeholder engagements, and it's really focusing on, you know, a win-win formula. So I invite everyone to really come and talk to us and see how can we work together? Because this platform was created to spark innovation and to spark new business opportunities.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, and I think definitely innovation and technology is a key to topics that I think everybody have to look into. I have one question for Mr. Osman Sultan. I've been hearing, I listened to so many of your presentation in past, and I do remember that you always talk about past, present, and future. And what has happened in last few months, in this thing? What three things do you suggest to the local business community or local or internationally, that three things they can incorporate in their business model for the coming months and years to come?
If they are revisiting their business model for 2020, as I told you, I sit on some boards and we systematically ask, make us a survival scenario. They have best case, worst case. We told them, go below the worst case and make us a survival scenario where revenues are not there. But it doesn't mean that this will happen. And I believe that's one. Two, think how you can immediately innovate in your business model. Three, and that's something dear to my heart. I give you one example. I'm on the board of a company that offers to SMEs the possibility to put them on the digital map and to bring them online, which is now demanded. But fixed costs, this is a small startup, fixed cost could have eaten them. They wanted to let go. They let go something, maybe 12 people. In the current situation, you let go people, these people will not find anything else. Some of them will not be able to go home. We told them, listen, bring them back on a variable cost. Bring them back on a full variable cost, and these people were happy. So think about the people you are employing. Think about making sure that you don't take measures. I am against, and we saw some companies saying we will not let go. Now it's difficult because it's survival, but I think that they need to make the effort to see, is there anything we can do to be able, because they are with these employees, they are forming one. They need to be together in the adversity. So I would suggest that specifically for small companies, that a thinking, a brainstorming is happening, how they can, help each other, because it can be a tragedy at all. And I still believe that the human companies are there to help. Yes, of course, are there for shareholders. And I've been a CEO of a publicly traded company for 22 years, both in Egypt and then in the UAE. So I know what shareholder value is. But you create the shareholder value by focusing on your people and making sure that these people are as well having their lives impacted in the right way.
I totally agree with you. The companies, the people, the employees, the staff, these are the assets, they are your people. And I think, but sometimes, in the current situation, what I understand is people or companies are making decisions, even they don't like it, they have to take those decisions, to continue, and all that.
There need to be some thinking given to it. That should not be a quick. I understand that sometimes they have to do it. It's because the situation is tough. I fully understand that. Please don't get me wrong. But I cannot but say, think about the people. Think of them.
Okay, I want to have a quick my remarks to Mr. Ahmed that I am an HP. I was one of the largest distributor of HP in the US back in the 80s. So I know how HP works, and I have worked with them in every way possible. And I know HP is always working for the future, for the smart betterment and all that, and to bring in not only the equipment, the technology and research and development. And I'm sure that in last 3 to 4 months, what has happened, I'm sure there are a lot of more things coming from HP to assist the communities, the business community, government, and different entities. And I'm sure that the HP in UAE will do great under your leadership and everything else, But I want to ask each panelist, and I will start with you, if Mr. Ahmed, like a closing remark for 1 minute, for this webinar today.
All right. Thank you so much for your kind words. To close off, it was a pleasure to be part of this wonderful panel with great minds and great thoughts. If I will conclude on this day, we are all about going into uncertainty, being agile and ready. We need to have a lot of scenario planning. We need to ensure that we have the right infrastructure, and most importantly, the people, as Mr. Rothman said. Today, it's a balance that everyone is trying to create between health, between economy, and sustaining all that life cycle altogether. As I opened this panel with a statement that HP's mission is to enhance the way people live and work, and that we will continue on doing so globally and within UAE. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening and joining us today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Can I request His Excellency Hussain Mahmoudi, can you give a closing remarks, please?
Thank you, Tariq, for organizing this webinar. And I would like to thank my colleagues as well. I would say just something that we are very lucky in living under these conditions. As human, we have brothers that are they don't have houses or foods or security. There are a lot of refugees in the world. People they don't have basics. So I understand we have challenges with businesses, but there are, as human, we have much more important things to think about than really only businesses and money. We have our brothers and sisters, they don't have places to stay and live. I would encourage everyone who is with us today in this holy month to really dedicate some of their resources to those people, deprived people, our brothers in humanity. And that's my message. It's challenging time, but as human, we will prevail, I'm sure. But we also should not forget those who are undeprived from basic resources. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I request Mr. Osman Sultan to give his closing statement, please?
Yes, of course. And after thanking Mr. Hussain for his human touch, because it goes really to all our hearts, and I thank him for that. What my closing remark would be, and you have seen it, Dr. Tariq, in some of my presentation, we are moving more than ever to what I called from the unshared certainties, where each part, each sector, each nation, each had their certainties, and we didn't need to share, to the world more than ever of shared uncertainties. We are moving to uncertainties, and guess what? We will have to share. So the call is to have conversations that will allow us to get the right answers after we ask ourselves the right question. I do hope that this will be an opportunity for fixing a lot of things in this world that needed to be fixed.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I request Mr. Muhammad for his closing statement, please? Yeah.
Actually, first of all, thank you for all of you. It's a pleasure actually to be with all of you. And the closing that in the next after the COVID, actually, we need to focus a lot about the healthcare system and research. Before, we used to have the research as a part of curriculum or as a part of side budget. But from the time being, the research and the innovations It must be the core of each business and the core of each systems. And we need to develop a system that it will work even in the crisis, because there we cannot plan it well, and even to balance between to balance and collaborate with all the sectors in our community. Thank you all, and it's a pleasure actually to be with you today.
Thank you very much. Now I like to ask Mr. Asif, but I want to ask him a question first. You are a technology person, and you innovation, and I always talk to you about different things, what is coming up, and you are doing great in assisting even UAE big organization and government entities into innovation. What do you see as you as a technology expert, that what has happened, and what do you see for the business community? What's your advice, and then give a closing statement.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the CEO Club for allowing this webinar to come online and helping audiences to understand where we are with this technology, and also allowing me to speak to the panelists and questioning them and hearing their insights as well. It's been really insightful hearing from really great leadership and knowledge panelists. For me, as you know, I love technology. I like to explore different solutions and innovations type of thing. And where we see that, I keep saying, we live in from a technology perspective, we live in an ecosystem. We talk about cloud, we talk about IoT, we talk about all these buzzwords, right? Data and everything. These need to be collaborated as one. And people used to see them as individual components, but you can't have them as individual components. You need them as one. And also collaborating with the organizations like HPE, like I do in UAE, and as well as individuals like yourselves, Dr. Mr. Hussain, in your parks type of thing, where we can help and bring investment and build innovation solutions type of thing. So for me, I would say that no matter what we do or what we look at in the future, technology is definitely going to play a part in our roles, right, in our lives. It already had in the past, but now people are more aware of it, I think, because of the tools like we're using today, webinars, and it's helping to collaborate. So I think 3 key points are collaboration, networking, and innovation. That needs to be done together as a community and as individuals, and obviously especially in the UAE, I'm more than happy to meet people and collaborate with the organizations that we can help them build solutions. We do a lot of solutions in the UK. We help the UK government in terms of AI solutions and data management type of thing. And like you said, Dr. Tariq, we've done that similar to the UAE government already. And we are more than happy to provide our data management or AI solutions, where I think is going to be more important going forward, where we can help and combat issues or challenges that come across. Thank you very much.
Well, okay, no, thank you very much. I just want to make one comment. I think in last 3 months, what has happened, this crisis, I think the 2 industry we always talking about is the tourism, the airline industry and the hospitality. I think they really have to come up with very creative ideas. These airlines, they cannot be just a carrier of passengers anymore. They have to add more service, more things, maybe like a live concerts or entertainment or something valuable they have to add into airline industry. That's how maybe I think you can back to the people, because remember these industries have to, maybe I should not say, but they're starting from scratch again, getting the confidence. And same thing for the hospitality industry, that they have so many rooms, so maybe they should think of converting into these small offices, and then make them offices, and with the full service offices, that can help it. And maybe free zones can take those hotels as their office, free zone offices, and with the full service, there might be one of the solutions for the hospitality industry to survive until they go back to the normal business. And I think it will take some time, but I think this is the time, like Mr. Hussain Mahmoodi says, that the human being, this is the time we have to show that how good human beings we are. We have to improve ourselves. We have to improve for the community, and I think it's each one of us responsibility, not only from the one side of looking at their own interest. I think we have to look at for the local community and the region and beyond. And I think if we all work as a team, we all support each other in their own expertise and own capacity, this is how we can get over with these things. Crisis, if you look at it, crisis has been there in the day the world has was exist. So the crisis come is all depend on all of us. that how we can get over with this thing, how we cope with it, and how we get ready for it. So I think, with today's input, I appreciate every single panelist. I like to thank Mr. His Excellency Hussain Mahmoodi. I like to thank Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Osman Sultan and Mr. Mohammed for being the panel, and Mr. Asif for moderating a good session. And I hope we all got some valuable input. And definitely, I want to thank all the participants that who were with us for more than an hour and a half, in this webinar. And I think we all have learned something and educate ourselves for the better environment wherever we are in the world. But thank you very much once again. But I like to say what I always say, that let's learn from past to correct our present for better future. So thank you very much. And with that note, I like to thank everybody again, and I like to end this seminar. At this time. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.